The Montana wilderness stood quiet under the dimming light of dusk. The towering pine trees swayed gently, their long shadows stretching across the forest floor. The air was heavy with a biting chill, and distant wolf howls pierced the silence, a haunting reminder of the untamed wild. Beneath one of the towering trees, tied tightly with a thick rope, stood a Mustang. Once proud and strong, the horse now looked like a shadow of its former self. Its ribs jutted out sharply beneath its rough, dull chestnut coat. Every breath it took was labored, shallow. Its legs quivered, barely holding up its weight, as if they might give out at any moment. The wild gleam in its eyes had dulled, replaced by a tired, hopeless gaze. Nearby, John Harper stood with a hard expression. His weathered face was as cold as the wind brushing against him. In his late 40s, rugged and hardened by years of struggle, John's rough hands tugged at the rope, ensuring it wouldn't loosen. "Can't keep you," he muttered, his voice flat and almost lifeless. "You're more trouble than you're worth." The Mustang flinched at his words, a faint trace of recognition flickering in its dark eyes. But it didn't have the strength to resist. It was too tired, too weak. John took a final look, his boots crunching against the frozen dirt as he stepped back. The howls of wolves carried through the trees again, closer now. He turned on his heel, his coat billowing in the cold wind, and disappeared into the shadows of the forest without a backward glance. Left alone, the Mustang stood trembling, the rope cutting into its neck. The world around it grew darker, colder. The first wolf appeared moments later, its glowing amber eyes fixed on the helpless horse. Another followed, then another, until a circle of predators formed, their low growls vibrating through the stillness. The horse's nostrils flared, its ears flicking, but it lacked the strength to move. As the lead wolf crouched low, preparing to pounce, a sharp whistle rang out. The sound sliced through the tension like a knife, making the wolves freeze. The Mustang lifted its head faintly, its ears flicking toward the unexpected noise. Emerging from the darkness, a flickering lantern cast light across the scene. An old man stepped forward, his voice steady and commanding. "Get back!" he barked, swinging the lantern in a wide arc. The wolves hesitated, growling low, but the man's presence made them pause. Hope, faint but undeniable, sparked in the Mustang's tired eyes. The piercing chill of the Montana night faded into a softer glow as the hermit's lantern cast flickering shadows across the clearing. The wolves growled low, their amber eyes darting between the frail Mustang and the wiry old man who now stood between them and their prey. "I said, get back!" the man bellowed, his voice firm but calm. He swung the lantern in a deliberate motion, the light catching the wolves' glinting teeth. The pack hesitated, their instincts warring with hunger. Finally, after a tense moment, the alpha wolf let out a low growl and retreated into the shadows. The others followed, their movements swift and silent, until only the man and the Mustang remained. The hermit turned his sharp, weathered eyes to the horse. "Well, aren't you in a sorry state?" he muttered, stepping closer. His gait was slow, deliberate, an effort not to frighten the animal further. The Mustang tensed, its trembling legs barely keeping it upright. "Easy now," the man whispered, pulling a small knife from his belt. With practiced precision, he began cutting the thick rope that bound the Mustang to the tree. "Whoever left you here didn't think you were worth saving," he said, his voice softening. "But I don't see it that way." The last strand of rope fell away, and the Mustang collapsed onto the cold, hard earth, its body too weak to hold itself up any longer. The hermit crouched beside it, placing a gentle hand on its neck. His fingers traced the scars and raw skin left by the rope. "You're tougher than you look," he murmured, his voice low and steady. "Let's get you out of here." With surprising strength for his wiry frame, the hermit fashioned a makeshift sled from fallen branches and carefully rolled the Mustang onto it. The horse didn't resist. Its exhaustion was too great, but a flicker of trust glimmered in its dark eyes. Hitched to a mule, the sled began its slow journey deeper into the wilderness. The Mustang's eyes fluttered shut as the rhythm of the mule's hooves lulled it into a restless, uneasy sleep. As the small cabin came into view, bathed in the soft light of dawn, the hermit glanced back at the fragile creature he had rescued. A quiet determination settled over him. "You're not done yet," he said softly, "and neither am I." The first light of dawn bathed the hermit's secluded cabin in soft gold, its wooden walls blending seamlessly with the surrounding forest. Smoke curled lazily from the chimney, a faint promise of warmth in the wilderness. Inside, the Mustang lay sprawled on a bed of hay in the corner, its breaths shallow but steady. The old hermit, Eli as he was known, moved about the small space with quiet purpose. His wiry frame and weathered hands betrayed a life of solitude. He stirred a pot of steaming herbs over the fire, glancing now and then at the fragile creature in the corner. "You've made it this far," Eli muttered, pouring the concoction into a bowl. "Let's see if you've got the fight to keep going." He approached the Mustang cautiously, the bowl in hand. The horse's ears flicked, and its glassy eyes cracked open, meeting Eli's gaze. For a moment they stared at each other, an unspoken understanding passing between man and beast. "This will help," Eli murmured. Kneeling beside the Mustang, he gently spooned the herbal mixture into its mouth. The horse flinched at first, but then accepted the warm liquid, its nostrils flaring as it swallowed. For days, Eli devoted himself to nursing the Mustang back to health. He cleaned its wounds with steady hands, each movement careful and deliberate. He foraged for herbs, scoured the forest for food, and checked the traps he had set to ensure their survival. He decided to name the horse Ember, a nod to the faint spark of life still flickering in its battered body. "Don't let that fire go out," Eli said one evening, sitting on a stool beside the Mustang. Ember's breathing was steadier now, its coat starting to regain a faint sheen. The horse lifted its head slightly, its dark eyes more alert than before. But the wilderness wasn't done testing them. Each night, the chilling howls of wolves echoed through the trees, a stark reminder of the dangers lurking just beyond the cabin walls. Eli kept his rifle loaded by the door and a lantern burning through the night. One morning, as sunlight spilled through the dense canopy, Eli decided it was time. "Let's see if you can stand," he said, his voice both firm and encouraging. Ember shifted, its legs trembling beneath its weight. With a deep, shuddering breath, the Mustang pushed itself up. First one leg, then another. It wobbled but stood, its fragile body defying the odds. "That's it," Eli whispered, a rare smile breaking across his weathered face. "You've got more fight in you than most." The cabin, once a place of solitude, now brimmed with fragile hope. Eli and Ember weren't just surviving. They were fighting back, together. The crisp morning air carried the scent of pine and earth as Eli led Ember out into the clearing for the first time since the Mustang had arrived. The horse's coat, once dull and lifeless, now carried a faint sheen under the morning sun. Ember's steps were tentative, its muscles trembling slightly as it adjusted to the open space. "All right, boy," Eli said, his voice gentle but firm. "Let's see what you've got." He had fashioned a simple lead rope from sturdy twine and looped it loosely around Ember's neck. The Mustang's ears flicked toward every rustle in the underbrush, a lingering reminder of the days it had spent vulnerable and exposed. But its head held higher now, and its dark eyes were brighter, brimming with cautious determination. As Eli led Ember deeper into the forest, the towering pines cast long shadows over the pair. The ground beneath their feet was soft with fallen needles, and the distant call of birds filled the air. Ember's steps grew steadier, the rhythm of its hooves crunching against the earth, creating a calming cadence. "You've been through worse, haven't you?" Eli said, more to himself than the horse. He stopped by a shallow stream, where Ember lowered its head to drink deeply. The sight brought a small smile to Eli's face, proof that the Mustang's strength was returning. But the peace was short-lived. A sudden rustle in the trees made Eli freeze. His sharp eyes scanned the forest, his hand instinctively reaching for the rifle slung over his shoulder. Ember's ears swiveled, its nostrils flaring as it lifted its head from the stream. The forest, once tranquil, now felt heavy with tension. Then he saw them, a pair of glowing eyes in the shadows, followed by another. Wolves. Their sleek bodies moved silently through the underbrush, their predatory instincts honed by hunger. Eli tightened his grip on the rifle, his heart pounding. Ember shifted closer to him, its muscles coiling like a spring. The horse wasn't just scared, it was ready to fight. "Not today," Eli muttered, raising his rifle. The alpha wolf growled, stepping into the clearing, its sharp teeth bared. Ember let out a defiant snort, its head lowering as if preparing to charge. Together, man and Mustang stood their ground, ready to face whatever came next. The forest fell silent, an unnatural stillness that sent a chill down Eli's spine. The wolves stepped out of the shadows one by one, their glowing eyes fixed on the Mustang. Ember snorted, its powerful legs stamping against the ground, sending up small clouds of dirt. The horse's breath came in sharp bursts, its nostrils flaring as it stood tall, refusing to show fear. Eli's rifle was steady in his hands, the years of wilderness survival sharpening his instincts. He counted at least 5 wolves now, their sleek bodies moving in a coordinated formation. The alpha, larger and more menacing than the others, prowled closer, its yellow eyes locked on Ember. Eli's jaw tightened. "Easy, boy," he whispered to the Mustang, his voice low and steady. "We're not going down without a fight." The alpha wolf crouched, muscles rippling under its fur, ready to lunge. Ember reared back, letting out a sharp cry that echoed through the clearing. The other wolves hesitated, momentarily startled by the sound. It was all the distraction Eli needed. He fired a warning shot into the air, the sharp crack of the rifle tearing through the silence. The wolves flinched but didn't retreat. Instead, they grew bolder, spreading out to encircle their prey. The alpha let out a low growl, a signal to the pack. Eli's heart pounded, but his grip on the rifle remained firm. He glanced at Ember, whose dark eyes blazed with defiance. The Mustang pawed the ground, its body coiled like a spring, ready to fight. "Stay close to me," Eli murmured, though he knew the horse didn't need the command. Ember had already stepped toward him, its chestnut coat shimmering under the faint light filtering through the trees. The first wolf lunged, teeth bared and claws extended. Ember reacted instantly, rearing up and striking with its powerful hooves. The wolf yelped, retreating into the shadows. Another wolf darted forward, but Eli's rifle was faster. He fired a precise shot, grazing its shoulder and sending it scrambling away. The pack hesitated, their confidence shaken. The alpha growled, but the collective energy of the wolves faltered under the combined force of man and Mustang. Slowly, one by one, the wolves retreated, their growls fading into the distance. As the forest quieted once more, Eli lowered his rifle, his chest heaving with adrenaline. Ember stood beside him, its sides heaving, but its stance proud and unyielding. "You're a fighter, boy," Eli said softly, his voice laced with pride. "We're going to make it through this." The Mustang snorted as if in agreement. Together they had faced the wild and won. Morning light filtered through the trees, casting long shadows across the clearing. Ember grazed quietly near the cabin, his ears flicking at every faint sound. Eli stood on the porch, his rifle resting against the doorframe. The memory of the wolves lingered, but it wasn't the predators of the wild that gnawed at his mind. It was the threat of the men who had claimed to own Ember. Eli's sharp eyes scanned the tree line, every muscle in his body tense. He had spent the early morning reinforcing the cabin's defenses, resetting traps, and going over every possible strategy in his mind. He knew they would return. Men like that didn't walk away empty-handed. By midday, the sound of approaching hooves shattered the stillness. Eli stepped off the porch, his rifle in hand, as 4 men emerged from the shadows of the forest. The leader, the same tall man with the cruel smirk, dismounted and walked toward the clearing. His wide-brimmed hat shaded his face, but his posture radiated confidence and menace. "I told you we'd be back," the man said, his voice carrying across the clearing. "This time, we're not asking." Eli tightened his grip on the rifle, his voice calm but firm. "This is private land and that horse isn't yours. You abandoned him, left him for dead. He's mine now." The leader chuckled darkly, motioning to his men. "You've got guts, old man, but this isn't up for debate. Hand over the horse or we'll take him." Ember snorted, lifting his head from the grass, his body tensing. The Mustang's instincts mirrored Eli's. Fight or flight. Eli raised his rifle, aiming squarely at the leader. "You'll have to go through me first." The tension in the clearing was thick, the standoff stretching unbearably long. One of the men reached for his pistol, but before he could draw, Eli fired a warning shot into the ground. The sharp crack of the rifle startled the horses, one rearing and throwing its rider to the ground. The leader sneered, his confidence faltering. "You think you can hold us off? You're just one man." Eli smirked. "One man who knows these woods better than you ever will." As the men exchanged uncertain glances, Ember stepped closer to Eli, his dark eyes blazing with defiance. Together, man and Mustang stood their ground, unyielding in the face of danger. "Leave," Eli said, his voice cold and unrelenting, "or you'll regret it." The leader hesitated, then growled, "This isn't over." With a sharp motion, he signaled his men to retreat. One by one, they turned their horses and disappeared into the forest. Eli lowered his rifle, exhaling deeply. "They'll be back," he muttered to Ember. The Mustang tossed his head, his spirit as unbroken as ever. "Let them come," Eli said softly, patting the horse's neck. "We'll be ready." The forest was unnervingly quiet that evening. The usual chirping of birds and rustling of leaves seemed muted, as though the wilderness itself was holding its breath. Eli sat on the porch, his rifle across his lap, staring out into the tree line. Ember stood in the clearing, his ears swiveling at every faint sound, his powerful frame coiled with tension. Both man and horse knew what was coming. As the moon rose high into the sky, the crunch of hooves shattered the silence. Lantern light flickered in the distance, growing brighter with each passing second. Eli rose to his feet, his grip tightening on the rifle. 4 riders emerged from the shadows, their weapons gleaming in the moonlight. This time they came ready for war. The leader dismounted, his face set with grim determination. "You've had your fun, old man," he sneered. "This ends tonight." Eli stepped forward, rifle aimed squarely at the leader. "I told you before, he's not yours. You want him, you'll have to go through me." The leader smirked, but it was forced, his bravado masking unease. "You think you can stop us? There's 4 of us, and 1 of you." Eli didn't flinch. "Maybe, but I'm not alone." He glanced at Ember, who snorted and pawed the ground, his muscles rippling in the moonlight. The Mustang's fiery spirit burned bright, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The first shot rang out, piercing the still night air. Eli fired into the ground, a warning that sent the men's horses into a frenzy. One rider was thrown, his weapon clattering to the dirt. The chaos was enough to give Eli and Ember the upper hand. As the men scrambled to regain control, Ember charged. His powerful hooves thundered against the earth, and his wild cry echoed through the clearing. One man swung a lasso, but Ember dodged with agility born of survival. He lashed out with his hind legs, striking another attacker's horse and sending it bolting into the trees. Eli approached the Mustang, resting a hand on his neck. "You did good, boy," he said softly. Ember snorted, tossing his head as if to say, "I knew we'd win." Together, they watched the last of the lantern light vanish into the trees. The fight was over, for now, but Eli and Ember had proven one thing. Together, they were unstoppable. The dawn broke gently over the forest, casting warm golden light across the clearing. Ember stood grazing near the cabin, his chestnut coat shimmering in the soft glow. His scars, though still visible, now told a story of survival and strength rather than pain. Eli leaned against the porch, rifle resting by his side, his weathered face softened with quiet pride. It had been weeks since the attackers retreated, their arrogance crushed by the bond between man and horse. The forest had returned to its natural rhythm, its sounds once again a soothing symphony. But Eli knew this peace was temporary. He had made a decision, one that weighed heavy on his heart, but felt undeniably right. Eli approached Ember, holding a simple halter in one hand. The Mustang lifted his head, his dark eyes meeting Eli's with a calm understanding. "It's time, boy," Eli said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "Time for you to go back to where you belong." He ran his hand along Ember's mane, savoring the moment. The horse stood still, as if sensing the gravity of what was about to happen. Eli led him to the edge of the clearing, where the forest stretched endlessly before them. He removed the halter, his hands lingering for just a moment before stepping back. "You've earned this," Eli said, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat. "Go on now. Run free." For a moment, Ember didn't move. He turned his head to look at Eli, his gaze filled with something unspoken, a bond that neither time nor distance could break. Then, with a powerful leap, he took off into the forest, his hooves thundering against the earth. The trees swallowed him whole, leaving the clearing empty and silent. Eli watched the spot where Ember disappeared, his heart a mix of pride and sorrow. The Mustang was free, as he was always meant to be, But the cabin felt quieter now, emptier. Weeks turned into months. The forest carried on, and so did Eli. Yet every now and then, as he walked the trails or sat on the porch, he'd catch a glimpse of a chestnut figure moving through the trees. Ember was out there, wild, strong, and free. Eli smiled to himself, the weight in his chest lifting. Ember wasn't just a survivor, he was a symbol of resilience, courage, and the unbreakable bond they had forged. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, Eli felt peace. They had both found their freedom in their own way. And for Eli, that was enough. Thank you for watching. We hope this incredible story of survival, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between a man and a wild Mustang touched your heart. If it inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories that celebrate courage, hope, and the enduring connection between humans and animals. Let's work together to spread messages of compassion and strength. Stay tuned for more heartfelt tales, and we'll see you in the next video.